So I have two methods that I like to use for making straps, and I'm going to go through both methods. Okay, so I have 4 straps cut out here, and I like to cut my straps about 1 and 1/4 inch wide. So I'm going to set 2 of these aside for now, and I'm going to show you the easier method, and I'm going to show you one without elastic and one with elastic, because it's up to you if you want to include elastic in your straps. So this is the tri-fold method. So what you want to do is figure out which side is the right side of your fabric. So I'm going to mark the wrong side so you can see it. Personally, I like this side better, so I'm going to just mark with an X on the wrong side. I'm going to do the same with this one. Okay, so I want this strap to be 1/4 inch wide. So I have my seam gauge here, and I have it set to approximately 1/4 inch. So what I'm going to do is fold in one side of my strap by 1/4 inch. And I'm using my seam gauge to determine where that 1/4 inch is. And then once I have that folded in, I'm going to go ahead and fold the other side over it. And then I'm going to pin that. So the wrong side is inside, the right side is folding around to encase the wrong side inside. So this is what it looks like from the back, and then from the front you can see I have my 1/4 inch wide strap here with a little bit of excess coming off of the other side, which we will trim this away after we sew it. But for now, just continue down, folding in the lower side by 1/4 inch, then folding the other edge over the top of it, pinning it in place. Okay, so we have this strap pinned. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you how you would pin it if you were including elastic. So I have my elastic here. I'm going to unroll just a tad. And I'm just going to cut a piece that's slightly longer than my strap, just so I can get the roll out of the way. Now, for straps, you do not want to stretch your elastic at all, so your elastic is going to be the same length or slightly longer than your strap. So let's start at one end here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the elastic 1/4 inch above this upper edge of the strap. Then I'm going to fold that edge over the elastic. And my elastic is 1/4 inch wide, so I know that if I fold it so that the edges line up, the edge of the elastic lines up with this raw edge of my fabric, I know my fold is 1/4 inch wide. I don't need to measure because the elastic is 1/4 inch wide. So then I'm just going to fold the other side up and over my elastic and pin it in place. And it's okay that my elastic extends a bit beyond my strap, because once I sew this, I can just go ahead and trim that away. So then you just continue on down Okay, so I've got this one completely pinned now. And you can see that the fabric is basically just encasing the elastic. And it looks really just like this other one that we pinned, except this one does not have elastic on the inside. So next what we're going to do is take these to the sewing machine, and the sewing of these is exactly the same whether you have elastic or no elastic. So what we're going to do is just go straight down the center of these straps using either a zigzag stitch or a double needle. So I'm going to be using my double needle, but it's up to you how you want to do it, if you want to use a zigzag stitch instead. So I'm going to take you to the sewing machine and we're going to go ahead and sew these straps. Okay, so I'm here at the machine and I have my straps here. I'm going to just show you one because they're sewn exactly the same way. This happens to be the one that has elastic in it, but it doesn't really matter, they're sewn the same. So I have my double needle threaded. You could also use a zigzag stitch like I mentioned, and I'm also using white thread just because I didn't have anything in my collection right now that matches this fabric, but I definitely recommend that you use thread that matches your project if you can. So first what we're going to do is we need to make sure that we're sewing with this side facing up, not this side. So I'm just going to go ahead and get the strap under the presser foot, and I'm just going to sew straight down the center of this strap. So the last thing we need to do is trim away this little tab of fabric that's sticking out beyond the strap. So to do that, just turn the strap over so that the back of the strap is facing up, and then grab your snips or your scissors and just cut this extra bit of fabric off really close to your zigzag stitching. Just making sure that you're not cutting through your zigzag stitching and you're also not cutting into your actual strap. So here's what it looks like from the top, and then on the underside you can see where we trimmed that fabric away close to the stitching. For the second method, you're also going to start with 1 1/4 inch wide strips of fabric. Now this one I'm going to make without elastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my pins and I'm just going to fold this in half lengthwise with right sides together, and then I'm going to pin it. Okay, so it's pinned lengthwise, right sides together. Now this one is the one I'm going to put elastic in, and you start this exactly the same as the one without elastic. So I'm just going to fold it lengthwise, right sides together, and pin. Okay, so now the next step in the process is exactly the same, once again, whether you are not adding elastic or you are adding elastic. So we're just going to take these to the serger this time, or you can use a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. And I'm just going to sew the two raw edges together. all the way down the length of this strap. Okay, now here is where it starts to differ if you are including elastic. So I'm going to set aside one of these straps because I'm not including elastic. So if you're not including elastic, then just skip this next step that I'm going to show you. But if you are including elastic, then now is where you're going to put it in. So I'm going to put elastic into this strap. So I have my elastic here. I'm going to unroll a little bit, set it to the right of my machine. Then I'm just going to start the elastic at the end of the strap, and I'm just going to sew it into the seam allowance. So I'm just going to sew it right over my first set of stitching. I'm going to sew the elastic into that seam allowance. And the difference when I'm making straps is I don't stretch the elastic at all. So I do stretch when I'm making my swimsuits, but when I'm making straps, I do not stretch the elastic or the fabric. I just guide them through the machine. Alright, so here's our strap so far. Here's the one that I sewed the elastic into. You can kind of see the white elastic peeking through my serging there. Here's the one that I did not include elastic in. And the next step is just to turn these straps right sides out.
Alright, so here's what this type of strap looks like when it's done, and this one is really my favorite type to do, but hopefully you enjoyed learning about these two methods of making swimwear straps, and I hope you can incorporate these methods into your sewing swimwear. So I hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you in